morning, we are expecting William and Princess Kate to address the nation for the first time as king and queen. That will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
The world stood still as Queen Catherine emerged onto the balcony of Buckingham Palace, her eyes shimmering beneath the weight of a crown that symbolized both sudden loss and daunting responsibility. In that frozen moment, grief and duty entwined, etched forever into the annals of royal history. King Charles had fought with a quiet ferocity against an onslaught of illnesses that struck like relentless waves. But when the final tide came, it came swiftly, leaving behind a nation in mourning and a family forever altered. Queen Catherine's first coronation address, spoken with a voice steady yet trembling with emotion, set off a media storm like no other. She spoke of legacy and lineage, of sorrow and strength, of the enduring ties that would uphold the monarchy in a new age. Then came the words that sent shockwaves across the globe. Princess Anne will be the right hand and support for our new reign. What did it mean for the monarchy's future? What truths lay behind those carefully chosen words? How had the final chapters of Charles's life shaped this seismic moment? Stay with us as we unravel the story behind the speech, the tears, the triumphs, and the uncertain road ahead. And don't forget to subscribe for deeper insights into the royal family's most intimate and historic moments. King Charles's reign began with promise and principle, a vision of a modern crown defined by service, sustainability, and quiet strength. But behind the polished facade of royal engagements, a storm was gathering. It started quietly, murmurs of fatigue from his tireless public appearances. But by early 2024, a routine procedure for an enlarged prostate unveiled something far more insidious: an undisclosed form of cancer. The palace released carefully curated glimpses of his perseverance, showcasing how he carried out his duties amid grueling treatments, drawing strength from his family and the loyal subjects he served. Yet as 2025 unfolded, complications deepened, side effects of therapies, repeated hospital stays, and murmurs of lingering illnesses, compounded by long-term impacts from COVID-19 and old sports injuries from his polo-playing youth. Despite the mounting strain, Charles pressed on with unwavering resolve. Those closest to him say he opened up in quiet moments, sharing regrets about lost time with grandchildren, unfinished environmental missions, and unresolved tensions within the family. But in the end, the illnesses converged like a perfect storm, taking hold in a way that blindsided even his doctors. His passing came swiftly, in the gentle stillness of a spring morning. Britain woke in collective disbelief, and the world paused to honor a king who gave his all until his final breath. In the wake of his passing, Catherine, then Princess of Wales, was propelled into a role she had long prepared for, but never expected to assume so suddenly. Her rise to the throne was swift, solemn, and saturated with symbolism. Within hours, the media roared to life. Headlines blared with the stunning news, while speculations swirled about how the new queen would preserve King Charles's legacy while forging her own. In the days that followed, the United Kingdom wrapped itself in mourning. Streets flooded, with black windows lined with portraits draped in crepe. Yet through the grief emerged a quiet solidarity. Funeral processions wound through the heart of London, echoing the floral tributes and reverent crowds last seen during Queen Elizabeth II's farewell. Amid it all, Queen Catherine, though visibly stricken with sorrow, stood tall beside her husband, now King Consort William, and their children, offering gentle waves and words of gratitude to a nation in mourning. This was a moment of just for a monarch, but for a man whose passions reshaped the monarchy, from organic agriculture and interfaith dialogue to subtle but significant steps toward a modernized crown. Yet even as the country grieved, preparations surged forward for a coronation unlike any before. A ceremony steeped in ancient tradition now carried the urgency of modern transformation. Westminster Abbey pulsed with activity as organizers wove in tributes to Charles lavish floral arrangements from his cherished Highgrove gardens, hymns echoing his values. And Catherine, ever composed under pressure, plunged herself into the moment. She rehearsed late into the night, poring over centuries-old documents and watching archival footage of Queen Elizabeth II's 1953 coronation. That broadcast, where the late Queen spoke of unity and faith, became Catherine's guiding star. But she longed to craft something more personal, an address that acknowledged not just continuity, but the sudden rupture they were living through. Behind palace walls, her inner circle spoke of her resolve, her tears, her desire to strike the perfect tone. As the coronation neared, the world's eyes turned to London. Media from the BBC to global news giants set up outside palace gates, breathless with speculation. What would Queen Catherine say? Would she lead with sorrow, with hope, or with something entirely new? Analysts and royal watchers debated the tone, the symbolism, the message. But no one could have predicted the emotional heartbeat of the ceremony. Princess Anne, Coronation Day broke with a sky of crisp blue, the streets of London alive with pageantry. Flags rippled in the wind, Union Jacks waved like prayers. Crowds lined the royal route, eager for a glimpse of history. And when Queen Catherine appeared in the Golden State Coach, it was a vision of poised elegance and regal gravity. Her gown, a masterful blend of classic formality and contemporary grace, whispered of both homage and evolution. Queen Catherine's coronation gown was more than a symbol of royalty. It was a tapestry of remembrance. Delicate embroidery paid homage to King Charles's lifelong devotion to nature, with motifs drawn from his beloved countryside gardens. Inside Westminster Abbey, the air was thick with solemnity and sacred tradition. Ancient rituals unfolded with precision: the anointing with holy oil, the crowning, the solemn oaths sworn before God and country, evoking echoes of monarchs past, particularly the stirring 1937 address of King George VI. But Catherine's coronation gently bent the arc of tradition. Interwoven with the sacred texts were readings from environmental poets favored by Charles, a quiet tribute to his lifelong mission. Yet the moment that gripped the nation came as Catherine placed her hands on the scepter. Her posture was unwavering, yet the emotional weight was unmistakable. Palisades later revealed that behind the grandeur, there were tears, silent and sincere. Catherine had leaned toward William and whispered what many would never hear. He would have been so proud. As hymns filled the abbey and the archbishop spoke of service and continuity, the crown was lowered onto her head. The air stood still. A new chapter had begun, woven from the remnants of the old. The media captured it all, every gilded angle, every flicker of emotion. Drones buzzed overhead while commentators compared Catherine's composure to her earliest public moments, such as her hesitant yet heartfelt 2012 speech at a children's hospice. But this stage was infinitely more daunting. With the eyes of the world fixed upon her, her next step was critical. The balcony appearance? This moment would be her first act as queen, not just symbolic, but declarative. It was her chance to shape the narrative, to honor the past while signaling the future. As she stepped onto the iconic Buckingham Palace balcony, flanked by her family and bathed in the roar of the crowd, her voice rose through the stillness, carried not just by microphones, but by emotion. She opened with reverence. "I stand here today, humbled by the legacy of a man who fought tirelessly for our planet, our people, and our family," she said, her voice both tender and resolute. The tribute to King Charles was not just political, it was profoundly personal. She spoke of his illnesses, how they struck suddenly and fiercely, but how he bore them with grace. "He shielded us from worry, even in his final hours," she said. His regrets, though never spoken, were deeply felt, a reminder to cherish each fleeting moment. The crowd, so jubilant moments earlier, fell into a reverent hush. The scripted veil had lifted. This was raw, real, and heartfelt. Then came the words that rewrote royal history: "Princess Anne, my beloved aunt, will be the right hand and support for our new reign." With that single line, the monarchy was reshaped. The press erupted. Headlines exploded. Analysts debated whether it was a stroke of strategic genius or a signal of unresolved tension within the family. But one thing was clear: Queen Catherine had placed trust where it had long quietly belonged. She spoke of continuity, building upon Charles's vision of a leaner, purpose-driven monarchy. Anne, with her decades of tireless service, would serve not only as an advisor but as an anchor. Catherine invoked memories of family gatherings, Charles's dry wit cutting through the heaviness of royal duties. She mirrored her own past speeches on mental health and resilience, weaving personal truth into public address. The speech, though just under 10 minutes, reverberated with the gravity of a new era. Commentators compared it to Elizabeth II's iconic 1953 pledge of lifelong service, but this version was undeniably Catherine's: sincere, modern, and fiercely heartfelt. As her final words called for national healing, applause thundered across the square. A queen had spoken, and a new story had begun. If King Charles was the crown's conscience, Princess Anne had long been its spine, tireless, unwavering, and often overlooked. She had outpaced every royal in engagements, logging over 200 appearances a year. Throughout Charles's reign, she was his shadow and his shield, from overseas state visits to behind-the-scenes counsel. When his cancer diagnosis shook the palace in 2024, Anne stepped up without fanfare, taking on increased duties and offering the kind of steadfast support only a sibling could. Sources describe her as Charles's late-night confidant, with whispered conversations about succession plans and unfinished missions and sustainability. With Queen Catherine's public endorsement, Anne's one silent service was made visible. Her new role advisor, guardian right hand, was finally named. Catherine's speech shone a light on this bond. She praised Anne's wisdom, forged over years of uncelebrated labor. Anne, the quiet warrior, who rode at the head of her brother's funeral procession on horseback, a powerful nod to her military credentials and ironclad loyalty, was now front and center. The media latched on instantly. Features celebrated her as the power behind the throne, the monarchy's anchor in a storm, but in ever-grounded, shunned pomp. Her no-nonsense pragmatism complements Catherine's empathic grace. Together, they form a formidable duo. Tradition meets evolution. Anne's legacy in equestrianism and rural advocacy finds balance in Catherine's advocacy for early childhood and mental health. Where one commands with duty, the other leads with heart. This partnership, forged in grief and sealed in trust, offers a stabilizing force for the monarchy's next chapter. In Anne, Catherine finds continuity. In Catherine, Anne finds amplification. Together, they answer Charles's unfulfilled hopes, ensuring that his vision, his values, and his quiet regrets are not lost, but honored. Behind the palace gates, away from the flash of cameras, the royal family's mourning continued in private moments of silence, of reflection, of unity. And in that stillness, something sacred took root, the promise of a reign not only remembered, but reborn. Queen Catherine, ever the devoted mother, balanced the enormity of her new role with the quiet responsibilities of home-comforting Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and little Prince Louis in the wake of a monumental loss. Those close to the family say she found her deepest strength in William's steadfast presence, their bond echoing the same unity she once spoke of during her 2023 World Mental Health Day address, a speech where she emphasized vulnerability not as weakness, but as a wellspring of connection. The abruptness of King Charles's passing, caused by a convergence of illnesses, left the family grappling with the ache of time, lost in said goodbyes, and moments that would now remain memories unrealized. Princess Anne, ever the quiet pillar, stepped in during this grief with grace. Around the dinner table, she shared anecdotes from her own childhood with Charles, using humor and warmth to gently ease the family's pain. For Catherine, her coronation speech became a vessel not only for duty, but for healing. Her words about Anne were not simply ceremonial, they were heartfelt acknowledgments of a woman who had become both a guide and a grounding force since Catherine's earliest days within the royal fold. The emotion was there for all to see, especially in the subtle glance Catherine gave on the palace balcony, a silent gesture of gratitude that needed no words. While media speculation swirled about palace dynamics, moments of unity emerged, like shared visits to Charles's cherished gardens, where together, they planted trees in his honor. This journey from personal grief to collective purpose mirrored historic royal transitions, like that of a young Queen Elizabeth II following George VI's death, moments where sorrow became the forge of leadership. For Catherine, this coronation wasn't just a formality, it was the symbolic crossing from Duchess to Queen. In her speech, the bridge from mourning to hope, Catherine's coronation speech was not the product of spontaneity, it was the culmination of weeks, even months, of quiet, painstaking preparation. It reflected the deliberate evolution of a woman whose public voice had matured alongside her growing responsibilities. From the very beginning of her royal life, Catherine was known for her warmth and emotional accessibility, qualities that have only deepened over time. In her early speeches, she openly admitted to battling nerves. But through persistent effort, including reported elocution, training to refine her delivery, she emerged as a confident orator whose voice now resonates with sincerity and strength. Experts have noted how her accent has subtly shifted, gaining a refined cadence that draws natural comparisons to the monarchy's most eloquent communicators. The preparations for her coronation address built upon this solid foundation. Catherine immersed herself in the process, reportedly drafting numerous versions, each crafted with precision to ensure that every word struck a chord, both personally and nationally. Her signature style, marked by empathy and authenticity, shone through. Much like in her 2017 remarks at the launch of the Out of the Blue art exhibition, where she spoke about the healing power of creativity in mental health recovery, her tone that day blended vulnerability with encouragement, resonating deeply with audiences. This same heartfelt quality infused her coronation speech, amplified by a team of trusted advisors who helped her draw from historical precedents, particularly Queen Elizabeth II's iconic 1953 coronation broadcast. That speech had emphasized gratitude, duty, and a hopeful gaze toward the future. Elements Catherine honored but also modernized, adapting them to reflect a new generation and a new kind of queen. Catherine wove personal touches into the address with care and conviction. She included direct quotations from King Charles's own writings on environmentalism, passages drawn from his book, and intimate recollections from her time supporting him during his treatments. She recalled quiet moments where, despite the pain, his wisdom shone through, offering comfort and clarity to those around him. These weren't mere flourishes. They were windows into the man behind the crown, and they served to humanize the monarchy at a time when authenticity has become more vital than formality. In acknowledging the regrets, Charles carried dreams unfinished, causes not yet realized. Catherine pledged, in effect, to carry those torches forward. Her tone, so markedly evolved from her earliest public speaking days, signaled this shift in full. Think back to her very first royal speech, delivered in March 2012 at the opening of the Treehouse Children's Hospice in Ipswich. Back then, her message was short and tentative, her eyes glued to notes, hands gently clasped in nervousness. Body language experts noted every pause, every flicker of anxiety. But now, more than a decade later, Catherine stands as a seasoned speaker. Her 2023 Mental Health Day speech, showcasing a poised woman who speaks of vulnerability without hesitation and of strength with unmistakable grace. The coronation rehearsals became a family endeavor, Princess Anne, the embodiment of continuity, offered counsel on how to weave legacy and tradition seamlessly into the address, sharing wisdom from her own decades of unrelenting public service. Meanwhile, King Consort William focused on another critical dimension, emotional authenticity. He worked closely with Catherine to ensure that the speech never slipped into hollow rhetoric, that each line rang true, raw, and real. Palisades describe evenings where Catherine rehearsed late into the night, standing before mirrors, carefully measuring her pauses, adjusting her phrasing for maximum resonance. This was not about performance, it was about connection, about collective healing, about opening the doors of Buckingham Palace just enough to let the public feel something deeply human. And in that balance between polish and vulnerability, Queen Catherine found her true voice. The final result was nothing short of masterful, a speech that walked the tightrope between regal grandeur and personal intimacy. Queen Catherine deliberately shunned the excesses of formal pomp, choosing instead a tone that felt as if she were speaking across a quiet table over tea. Her storytelling was accessible, rich with emotion, and profoundly human. The media erupted in praise, headlines lauding her as a new kind of monarch, one unafraid to confront grief, regrets, and unfinished dreams head-on. Among those dreams was King Charles's lifelong mission for a greener world, a cause Catherine vowed to carry forward with fresh urgency. Her tribute to Princess Anne wasn't a political formality, it was a meaningful symbol of shared strength and collective resilience, challenging the notion that monarchy must be isolating. In its place, she offered a vision of collaboration, of a sovereign surrounded by a loyal circle, not a solitary throne. This, more than anything, marked the beginning of a new royal era, an era where speeches stir the soul, spark unity, and invite the nation into a collective journey. Catherine's words weren't just carefully written, they were deeply lived. And as royal commentators reflect on this landmark address, one thing is abundantly clear. The shy Duchess, once tentative in public speech, has evolved into a sovereign whose voice may well shape a generation. As the final echoes of Queen Catherine's coronation speech fade, the monarchy now steps into uncharted territory, charting a course shaped by King Charles's enduring legacy and Catherine's emerging vision. Charles's valiant fight against illness has left a lasting impression, prompting the palace to explore initiatives focused on health, education, and family resilience. These may serve as natural extensions of Catherine's early years advocacy. Charles's environmental crusade, from promoting organic farming at Highgrove to launching the Sustainable Markets Initiative in Terra Carta in 2021, left behind a royal blueprint for ecological responsibility. His goal? To harness momentum toward a more sustainable future. In his memory, these ideals are being transformed into actionable projects, palace-led efforts to expand renewable energy, restore biodiversity, and champion environmental literacy. Catherine, inspired by her own role as a mother, now entered that legacy with her Shaping Us campaign, launched in 2023, an initiative emphasizing the vital importance of a child's first 5 years. Backed by the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood, the campaign seeks to reshape societal attitudes through cutting-edge research, public awareness, and a potential ripple effect on future policies involving parental support and mental well-being. In this evolving monarchy, Princess Anne's elevated role provides the backbone of continuity. Her decades of experience, from her presidency of the British Olympic Association to her leadership of Save the Children since 1970, bring authority and breadth to the Crown's outreach. With over 300 charitable commitments, including riding for the disabled and World Horse Welfare, and a decorated history as an Olympic equestrian, Anne is perfectly positioned to guide initiatives spanning youth, sports, and humanitarian aid. Her grounded, no-frills style complements Catherine's empathetic approach, creating a well-rounded partnership rooted in action. Together, they form a forward-thinking alliance, one that could see programs emerge around sustainable community gardens for families, expanded mental health support for young athletes, or new royal ventures blending environmental stewardship with child development. It's a royal strategy that doesn't just respond to modern challenges, it anticipates them. Already, the media narrative has shifted from stunned grief to cautious optimism. Polls show soaring approval ratings for Catherine, with many drawing comparisons to her 2016 Heads Together campaign, where she boldly addressed the stigma surrounding mental health alongside William and Prince Harry. Today, over 70% of the public expresses support for her reign, applauding her relatable focus on maternal mental health and her partnership with organizations like the Maternal Mental Health Alliance. Regrets, once voiced quietly during King Charles's final days, unfinished, green goals and unresolved initiatives, now being rekindled into bold royal action. Joint efforts between the Crown and environmental leaders aim to fulfill the Terra Carta's ambitious pledges, including net zero transitions and global eco-innovation awards held in his memory. Even within the royal household, unity is deepening. Plans are in motion for recurring public events honoring Charles, annual tree planting ceremonies at Highgrove, interfaith dialogues to continue his commitment to spiritual inclusivity, and The gradual involvement of young royals like Prince George and Princess Charlotte, grooming them not just for duty, but for meaningful impact. Catherine's reign, still in its infancy, already balances ceremonial tradition with initiatives. Her coronation speech, Where Grief Met Vision, was a blueprint for what's to come. It's a reign that includes digital health tools from her Mentally Healthy Schools program, but also moments of pageantry that root the crown in heritage. Her commitment to preventative care may soon lead to unprecedented global collaborations, including possible partnerships with leading institutions like Harvard's Center on the Developing Child, expanding the monarchy's reach beyond the UK and into global conversations on wellness and development. With Princess Anne as her unwavering ally, Queen Catherine stands at the helm of a monarchy undergoing meaningful transformation. Together, they embody resilience, progress, and balance. They lead not just by birthright, but by example, turning loss into purpose and tradition into forward motion. What part of Queen Catherine's speech resonated with you most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more updates as the next chapter of the royal story unfolds.